Fanboy. My name's TJ. Welcome to Knoxville.
Thank you, TJ. Thank you. I'm delighted to be with you folks. I really am really happy to be able to do this. I feel like we're on different planets and we're somehow able to communicate.
I can tell you the energy in this room. The energy in this room is electric.
Good.
Let's get started. Let's get our first question.
I will be appropriately shocked.
Hello, my name is Robert. I'd like to ask you if, prior to the Wrath of Khan, were you aware of the deep affection people have for the character Spock?
Was I aware of what?
The deep affection people have for that character Spock.
I think the answer to that would be definitely yes. Yes.
Just want to make sure, because I heard rumors that you were actually going to go into direction at that point and be out of the movie, out of the character Spock.
Well, that's a very interesting question. There have been times when I have been rumored to be many things that I wasn't. And one of the things I have been rumored to be was negative about Spock or negative about Star Trek. Never the case. A lot of that stemmed from the fact that I wrote a book in the mid-70s called "I Am Not Spock," and the title was a mistake. I think if you read the book, you'll discover that in the book, I actually said that given the choice of any character ever portrayed on television, I would choose to portray Spock, because I like the character, I like the dignity, I like his intelligence, I like his loyalty, his usefulness. I never actually meant to reject Spock or Star Trek. What I was doing in that book was trying to explain to an audience how an actor goes about building a character using elements of what the writers give him and elements of himself. The fact is, I said, I'll give you an example. I was in the airport and a lady with a little boy approached me and she brought him over to me and she said, "Johnny, look who's standing right here in front of you. This is your favorite character on television. You watch it every week." And he looked at me and there was no recognition at all. And she said to him, "This is Mr. Spock." Well, he was not going to buy it. The point is that what she was really saying to him was, this is the actor who portrays Mr. Spock, but she did not say that. She said, "This is Mr. Spock." And here I am in street clothes, and no pointed ears, and no Star Trek uniform, and what am I doing in the San Francisco airport, So, I thought that was interesting, and I wrote a chapter called "I Am Not Spock," in which I explained that I grew up in Boston, Spock did not. My parents were immigrants from Russia, Spock's were not. I have a brother who's a chemical engineer, Spock did not have a brother who was a chemical engineer. All these very differences. So I'm really not Spock, I'm the actor who played the role. And given that title, which I used as a title of the book, that was a big mistake because people didn't really pay much attention to the book. They paid attention to the title and thought that I was rejecting the character, which was never the case. Never the case. As a matter of fact, I think I can honestly say that I have the longest relationship with Spock and Star Trek of any character on Star Trek. I will go all the way back to the very first pilot, which we filmed, I think, around 1964 or something. So I've been involved with Spock for around 50 years now.
Next question.
Hi, Mr. Nimoy. My name is Jared.
Hello.
My question is, on Twitter at least, you have a kind of social activism group, Live Long and Prosper. What inspired you to kind of start that group and start that movement?
Well, I think "Live Long and Prosper" is a lovely idea. I did not come up with that term. Those words were written by a wonderful writer named Theodore Sturgeon. The first time we heard those words, the first time I spoke those words, as I recall, was in an episode of the original series called Amok Time, where Spock had to go back to his home planet to fulfill a marriage betrothal that had been arranged when he was a child. And there on Vulcan, we learned that Vulcans say to each other, "Live long and prosper." And that's where that was spoken the first time. I do use the term a lot. I sign off all my Twitter greetings with LLAP. Every once in a while somebody says to me on Twitter, "What is LLAP?" And then a few days later they say, "Oh my God, I was so dumb, of course, it's what they're talking about." And I have a granddaughter, a lovely young lady who runs a shop of items that are connected with me in various ways, connected with Spock, and it's called Shop LLAP. That's what it's all about. It was originated by Theodore Sturgeon, who wrote a very beautiful script. I'm on time with one of my favorite episodes. Thank you for the question.
Next question. You nervous? It's okay. It's okay.
No, don't pass out, don't pass out. No. What a sad sight that would be to see you hit the floor. No.
She told me to just move me on out, so. But, thank you, sir. My question is, when they came to you for Star Trek Into Darkness, and did they first come to you with, "Oh, by the way, we're killing off Kirk this time instead of Spock"? What were your thoughts when it came into it? Because with Wrath of Khan and Spock, his death was so, it was a big point, for them to put Kirk into it. I just would like to really know your thoughts on it.
Well, it is science fiction. And in science fiction, all things are possible. You can go backward in time, you can go forward in time, you can play the time that you're in, you can resurrect characters. It was a little difficult to resurrect Kirk because he'd been molding for a while. He was dead long enough. No, I didn't have any strong feeling about one way or the other. I think that J.J. Abrams, who directed those last two films, is a very, very talented young guy. Right now, amazingly enough, he's in London shooting the next film of the Star Wars series. And there is another Star Trek film being prepared. And my understanding is that it will be directed by Robert Orsi, who was one of the writers on the last two Star Trek movies. So I think we're in very good hands with very, very talented people. And I should mention, too, that I'm very, very pleased with Zachary Quinto, who I think is a wonderful actor, very well trained and very talented. Thank you for the question. Don't pass out. Okay. Okay.
Hello, Mr. Nimoy.
Hi there.
The question is, what is the most memorable moment in the original series for you?
Oh, wow. Well, a lot of memorable moments. Some of them are of a different nature than you might expect. I think the first really memorable moment was when I walked out on the set for the first time wearing those pointed ears and wondering if people were going to laugh at me. I was very concerned. I was very concerned about what the character looked like, and I wasn't quite sure that it was going to be successful. I had a reasonably good career going by that time as an actor, and I had a family to support, and I wanted to protect my career, and I was concerned that if this character didn't work, if people thought this was a joke or silly or foolish in some way, it could be very damaging to a career. So when I first walked out on the set, I was very anxious to see what the response would be. And then, of course, when we first went on the air, I had the same experience. What is an audience going to feel about Mr. Spock? The network, NBC, was not at all receptive of the Spock character. They thought that the character looked devilish, and that people might be afraid of the character, and kids might be afraid of the character. So in the initial publicity material that they published with photographs of me as Spock, they actually airbrushed out the points off the ears. So when I saw that material, and I saw those photographs, at first I didn't quite get it. I thought there's something wrong here. And the closer I looked, I realized that the pointer ears were gone. And I thought, well, if they're worried about the character, maybe I should be worried about the character too. But it worked out okay. It worked out okay. Thank you for the question. By the way, Knoxville has an interesting has an interesting history, and did you know that the Knoxville Symphony is the oldest continuing orchestra in the South? Yeah. Did you know that? I'm sure you recognize the fact that Flatt and Scruggs came from Knoxville. Did you know that? Yeah. And the Everly Brothers. Bye-bye happiness. We have some things to be proud of, Knoxville. Congratulations. Okay. What's your question, sir?
Hello, Mr. Nimoy. My name is Jordan. It's an honor.
Jordan.
And I have heard that parts of the character Spock you actually incorporated from a Jewish background. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, that's true. We were making this episode called Mock Time, but I made reference to a little earlier, where Spock had to go home to Vulcan to fulfill a marriage betrothal. And the three of us, Kirk and McCoy and myself, land on the Vulcan planet. And it's the first time in Star Trek that we're going to see other Vulcans, the first time we see a Vulcan other than Spock. So I was very in tune to the idea that it was an opportunity to give the audience some more information about what Vulcans were all about. And I was looking for some kind of a greeting for Vulcans. When we're met by a procession that comes out from the city, and the procession is led by a lady being carried in a sedan chair by four guys with Hershey's on their shoulders, and a very dignified lady who we discover is the matriarch of the Vulcan planet. She's like the big boss, and she has come out to officiate a Spock's wedding. So when she arrives, and we greet, I thought we should have some kind of special greeting that Vulcans have with each other. And I said so to the director, and he said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, humans shake hands with each other, and military people salute each other, Asian people bow to each other. We should give Vulcans something that they do when they greet. And he said, well, what would you like to do? So, when I was about 8 years old, I saw for the first time in a Jewish synagogue some gentlemen who were blessing the congregation with a blessing that's familiar to all of us in the Old and the New Testament. May the Lord bless you. May the Lord cause his countenance to shine upon you. May the Lord turn his graciousness unto you and grant you peace. They were saying this in Hebrew, and they were kind of shouting. They were very theatrical. And my father said to me, don't look. And I looked around, and sure enough, everybody's got their eyes covered. They got their heads covered with their prayer shawls. But I was 8 years old and I was curious, so I snuck a peek. I saw these guys, I saw these gentlemen up there on the stage facing the congregation. They got their hands out like this, both hands. Well, I was really interested in that. It was a sight, and it was chilling to hear them say this prayer and to see that. So I learned how to do that, and I learned later that this is the shape of a letter in the Hebrew alphabet, the letter Shin, which is the first letter in the word Shalom, which means peace. And I also learned that you're not supposed to look, because during that blessing, the belief is that the Shekinah, which is the feminine aspect of God, comes into the sanctuary to bless the congregation. And she is a deity, and the light from her is so powerful, you don't want to see that, it could hurt you. That's why people cover their eyes. Well, I peeked and I survived. So I said to the director, how about if Vulcans do that when they greet? He said, okay. And that's the way we did it, that's the way we got it in the show. That's where it all came from. Kids and bus drivers, all give me this. I love it. It's all coming back to me. Hi, how are you?
Hello, Mr. Nimoy. My name is Robin.
Hi, Robin.
Hi. I just wanted to tell you that this Vulcan uniform is the last thing that my grandmother made for me.
Oh.
she died the same, she raised me, and she died the same week that you adopted us as honorary grandchildren. So I wanted to say thank you and that I love you very much.
Oh, thank you. Very sweet. Thank you. Thank you. Did she say you're an honorary grandchild?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I have put out the word on Twitter that I have a very large family tent. And anybody wants to be my honorary grandchild, just say yes and you become an honorary grandchild.
Just a few.
My name is Justin. And
Hi, Justin.
I needed that for Grandpa, so thank you very much. And how did you get started in photography?
I started in photography when I was very, very young. I was about 8 years old. A friend in my neighborhood in Boston, where I grew up, showed me how to develop a roll of film and make a print. And I thought it was magical to be able to go out and take your camera out and do a roll of film. And instead of taking it to be processed someplace, you could go home and do it at home. And I learned how to do that. I've been involved with photography ever since. As a matter of fact, this thing over my shoulder here is one of my photographs. There is a photography site that shows my work. It's Leonard Nimoy Photography.com. And if you're curious about what the work looks like. I've always found it very satisfying to be able to make an object. Actors don't make objects. What actors do just kind of disappears into the atmosphere, except it's on film, of course, it has a life. But we don't make a thing. We don't produce something that you can hang on your wall or give to a friend as a gift or give to a relative or whatever. You can't give it away. A photograph you can give away. You can hang it on somebody, give somebody, you can hang it on that wall, you can give it to a friend. It makes a nice gift. And I've always loved the idea of making things. So photography was a way for me to do that. And it's also been a way over the years for me to express different ideas. And I've had a very good time doing that ever since I was about 8 or 9 years old. Thank you for the question. Thank you. Have you been drinking coffee? You seem like you're very red.
Oh my gosh, you're like an idol.
Thank you.
Okay, so my question is, since I consider myself to be a body person, what is your, like, did you guys ever, on the set of the original Star Trek, did you guys ever do jokes or anything on each other? Were you ever a prankster, Mr. Nimoy? You can tell us.
No, I wasn't much of a prankster. I'm afraid I took the work too seriously to be a prankster, but I'll tell you, the prankster was Mr. Shatner. and sometimes he can be cruel. And DeForest Kelly, who I love dearly and miss greatly, a wonderful, wonderful person. He played, of course, Dr. McCoy. He had a habit of coming in every morning to go to what we call the service table, where there was always coffee and donuts and various snacks that you could snack on all day long. And he had a habit every morning of coming in and pouring himself a cup of coffee, and he would take an English muffin, split it in two, and drop it into the toaster, and make himself a muffin, a toasted muffin, and then he would butter it. And he loved that every morning as a kind of breakfast treat, coffee and his toasted muffin. So our friend Mr. Shatner saw this happening every day and decided to play a joke on D. Kelly. And one morning when D. Kelly went and put his muffin in the toaster and pressed the button, Mr. Shatner had somebody else distract D. Kelly to take him away, which they did. D, come over here, I need to show you something. And while he was away, Shatner would pop the muffin out of the toaster and eat it. He did this because D came back to the toaster and thought, I thought I put a muffin in there. And he thought, well, maybe I thought I didn't do it, so he would do it again. Shatner popped it and ate it. When D. Kelly realized what was going on, he was very angry. And I said, D, I wouldn't be angry if I were you. I would just take it in stride, because if you stand you and Mr. Shatner side by side, it's easy to see who's been eating the muffins. Hello.
My name's Chris.
Hi, Chris. Are you a Knoxville person?
Yes, I am.
Are you all Knoxville people? Anybody from any place else? Oh, yeah. Anybody from outside the United States?
1%.
Back there, yeah. Where from?
I was born in Germany.
Germany, Israel, where else? Brazil.
Wow. Wow. Okay, welcome. Welcome to Knoxville. Okay. Okay, Chris, what's your question?
My question is, if you're the same age that you were back when they were doing the pilot, and that show, of course, Star Trek, happened today, would there be anything that you would have changed to the character of Spock?
Wonderful question. Wonderful question. The character of Spock did change. First let me point out that right about this time of year, 50 years ago, we were doing preparation to film the first Star Trek pilot. This time of year, 50 years ago. We started filming in November of 1964. So this November will be the 50th anniversary of the beginning of filming of Star Trek for the first time. 2 years later, in 1966, we went on the air. The character changed. The first changed physically and emotionally. The first iteration of the character Spock, the makeup was not quite so slick. The eyebrows were bushier, the hair was kind of jagged, the ears were a little bit different, the color wasn't quite the same as what we arrived at eventually. A man named Freddie Phillips, a great makeup artist, did the original makeup, and he gradually perfected it. And I sat and looked in the mirror and I saw the magic that he was creating. It was enormously helpful to me in understanding how the character should function, how the character would live in the world, because what he created visually for me to live with, when I could see in the mirror, was a very, very cool, a wonderful look, a very clean, sleek look that helped me enormously. So little by little, my performance changed based on what I saw happening in the mirror with the makeup department, and the writing too. The writers gradually came to understand where the real fun of the Spock character was, and gradually wrote for it better and better. I think in the second season, we really hit our stride with the Spock character. What a great question, thank you.
Hello, Mr. Nimoy. My name's Denise.
Hi. Did you say Denise?
Denise.
Yes, hello.
This is my Mother's Day present, is to speak with you on Spock. So, I just want to say that you made being smart sexy. You are you could swim a lady with just the raise of an eyebrow. Did you enjoy more the beginning of the series where you had the old props where you held in your hands, or the new series where you had the newer gadgets, old sci-fi versus new sci-fi? Special effects.
I was thinking today, just as I was preparing to do this Skype conversation with you folks, that it really is amazing how the technology has evolved, very much like what we had on Star Trek 50 years ago. The very first handheld telephone that we developed, 20 years or so ago, were called StarTAC. That was the name, the brand name was Star Trek. And they were a flip phone, just like we had on Star Trek, but the cover flip open, and then you dial whatever your number was. And now, we have these things, I'm sitting here using an iPad, and next to me I have this iPhone. These things are just like the tricorder that we used to use on the show. We can do the same thing with these as we did with tricorders. That you can get video, you can get your geographical location, you can find objects, you can find things around you, you can send messages, verbal messages, vocal messages, or video messages. It's amazing. The technology has really evolved. It's a very proud thing to be connected with a show that leads the way, that helps people understand what the possibilities are in our lives, not only technically, but philosophically too. Star Trek, you lead me into thinking about something that's very, very important to me. Star Trek was all about trying to make the world a better place to live in. And I think that's one of the most endearing things about the show. We were a group of people, very professional people, trying to solve problems and make the world a better place. Thank you for your question. Andrew, hello Andrew.
I have a question that's not related to Star Trek.
Oh. Okay, good, okay.
You released an album a long time ago, music record called The Ballad of Bilbo Baggins. I'm just curious how exactly that came about. Was that something you went to somebody and said, I want to make a song about Bilbo Baggins, or did somebody say, this would be great for you?
We were about, I guess about 40 years ahead of our time with that record. While we were still making, we were still making the first season of Star Trek, somebody from the studio came to me and said, there's a gentleman in the music business, in the record business, who's going to do an album of space music. And he's going to have some Star Trek theme music on the album. And we have just licensed him the right to use your image as Mr. Spock on the cover of that album. He would like to know if you would like to be involved in the album in any way. And I said, well, if I'm going to be on the cover, I think I should be inside too. So I left Los Angeles on a Friday night, flew to New York, and on Saturday and Sunday I recorded. He had already done 6 cuts of it on 12, album that had 12 tracks. And on Saturday and Sunday we recorded 6 tracks. And then I flew back to Los Angeles and went back to work on Star Trek on Monday morning. I had no idea what to expect. I thought the idea was interesting. I thought we had a couple of pieces on that album. I did some talk pieces and I did some songs. I thought there were a couple of pieces that might have some resonance that people might respond to. And sure enough, the album sold extremely well. And I was then offered a contract to produce, to perform on several more albums. So I agreed I would do that. I've always been interested in music. I don't consider myself a great singer, but I've always been interested in music, and I thought we could find a way to do some interesting material. The producer, who had originally contacted us about having me on this album, later came up with this idea. He said, there's a story about the Hobbit, and I have written a piece called Bilbo Baggins. I'd like you to consider recording it. And that's how it all came about. I thought it was kind of a charming, silly, fun kind of thing, and I thought just as a kind of a one-off kick, I'm going to do that and see where it falls. I learned a long time ago that some of the most interesting things you do come from doing the thing that scares you, from trying something different. Spock was something different for me, Bilbo Baggins was something different for me. And Bilbo Baggins is still, people are still interested. Thank you for the question. You all know the song Bilbo Baggins? No? You don't know the Bilbo Baggins song, the Hobbit song? Oh. In Middle Earth, in the land of Shire, there's a brave little hobbit whom we all admire. Long would windpipe, fuzzy wooden toes. He lives in a hobbit hole and everybody knows him. Bilbo Baggins, the bravest little hobbit of them all. That's it.
Hello, my name is Brianna.
Hi.
I was just wondering, Star Trek is known for being progressive and constantly pushing the envelope. And I was wondering if there was anything that you guys didn't get to do on the first Star Trek series that you wanted to.
I can't honestly say that that's the case. I think we really covered a lot of wonderful territory. I'm curious now. I had my best chance to do a story that most intrigued me and most concerned me with Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, which I directed. And I was given the chance to develop a story, to develop an idea that had to do with my concern about the conditions on this planet, about how we're treating the planet. And I was reading a book called Biophilia by a Harvard biologist, and he was talking in that book about the loss of species that were disappearing from this planet because, for various reasons, ecological reasons or whatever, they were dying out. And maybe their habitat was being destroyed and they couldn't live on this planet anymore. And he suggested the idea that all of the species on this planet are like a house of cards. It's fragile. You can build a house of cards and take away a card and maybe the house will still stand. You can take away another card, maybe the house will still stand. But if you keep taking away cards, you will eventually get to what he called a keystone card. You take away a keystone card, the thing begins to collapse. And he was concerned that if we keep losing species at the rate which we have been losing, like something like thousands of species every year just disappearing off the planet, that we could eventually, at that point, where we have taken away so many species that the ecology of the planet begins to really suffer. And we have whatever, climate problems or whatever you want to call it, that make life a little less livable on this planet. So I developed a story about the humpback whales, which at that time were an endangered species. They were being hunted into extinction. They were almost gone. And I developed that story. I'm very proud of that film because it really did heighten awareness to not only the humpback whale, but about what we do, how we deal with this planet, how we take care of this planet, how we take care of the living creatures on this planet, and the environment itself. And I was given that opportunity with the Star Trek IV movie, and I'm very happy with the result. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Thank you. Who's that?
My name is Jonathan Frakes. I'm a big fan. I was just wondering if you had any advice for a first officer.
You can love yourself as a director.
I did the same thing you did. You look great. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good to see you.
All kinds of surprises.
Yes, hello.
Hello, Mr. Nimoy. My name is Travis.
Hi.
And I just wanted to say that I've been a fan of yours all my life, even the comic books you did in the 90s. Or not. I thought they were great.
Thank you.
After hearing the news last year, I have to ask, how do you feel?
Oh, okay, thank you. I feel pretty good. I have to be careful physically. I have to be careful of how fast I walk. I have to be careful of stairs. Going upstairs, I have trouble. Let me back up a little bit. I have a condition that's called COPD. That stands for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And the best explanation for it is that I did a lot of smoking in my younger years. I started smoking when I was a teenager. When I started smoking, it was the cool thing to do. And And we had no reason to believe that it was damaging to you. The advertising for the cigarette company was really something you wouldn't believe today. I mean, they couldn't do it today because of government regulations. But at that time, for example, there was an ad that said, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. And you actually saw a picture of a doctor in his white lab coat holding a cigarette and smiling as he was saying, I love Camels. Camels are my favorite cigarette. So you got the feel, you were being taught that not only was it a pleasurable thing to do, but it was a healthy thing to do. It was okay to do it. And I bought into that as a kid. And I became addicted to nicotine. I was really, really a serious smoker for many years. I think I must have smoked for about 40 years. By the end, I was smoking about 2 packs a day. Some people smoke more than that, but I did my fair share. And I like to say that I was an Olympic champion smoker. I was really good at it. I could smoke any time of day or night. If I'm between courses and a meal, I would light a cigarette. Go get into a shower, I would light a cigarette and have it waiting for me when I came back out of the shower, so it was still, I just, it was ridiculous. What I did with cigarettes was ridiculous. Now, we are born with a certain number of cells in our lungs. And let's say you start with 100 cells, for example. After a period of time, as you age, you start to lose some of those cells. Just the aging process will take some of them away. If you haven't damaged your lungs, chances are you'll be okay and your lungs will survive as long as you need them to. But because I had done damage to my lungs, about 15 years ago, I started having a shortness of breath when I was walking and talking. I couldn't do both at the same time. I'd either have to stop and talk or keep walking and don't talk. I couldn't do both. And I became very concerned about it, and I thought, I can't have this, because obviously as an actor or director, I have to be able to walk and talk. So I quit smoking. It was not easy, but I quit smoking. I was heavily addicted, and I quit. Now, I quit sometime around 1983 or 4, something like that, after almost 40 years of smoking. And for a while, I was okay. I thought I'd gotten past the problem. I was okay. I could walk and talk. But then my age started to catch up with me. So the cells that were dying off now were cells that I really needed. And I began to feel shortness of breath, which I do now. I cannot move quickly. I cannot climb stairs quickly. I have to stop after 4 or 5 steps, catch my breath, and then I can move on. I enjoy my life thoroughly. I have a great family. I enjoy my kids, my grandchildren. I have 6 grandchildren and a great-grandson. I'm involved in a marriage with a woman that I really love. I love all the people in my life. I have a wonderful time. So as far as that's concerned, I'm doing great. As far as my health is concerned, I have to be very careful and watch my energy. Don't smoke. If you are smoking, quit. If you're not smoking, don't ever start. Okay? Thank you.
I'd like to throw in, I am now 92 days smoke-free.
It's hard. But you have to do it. You have to stop. Yes, sir.
You lived through some very hard times.
I'm having trouble hearing. I'm sorry.
You lived through some very hard times for this country, and things are pretty rough right now, violence in schools and everything. What advice would you give to today's generation?
Advice to today's generation? Just as we live in a complicated time. I'm very concerned with for people who are looking for work and can't find it. I'm very concerned for people who get through a college degree and can't even find work in their chosen profession. These things bother me a lot. We always were a country where if you worked hard and tried hard, things would work out for you. You could find a job, you could advance yourself, you could support yourself and hopefully support a family. It's tough now. This concerns me a lot. All I can say is get as much education as you possibly can because you're going to need it, because it is simply a fact that the more education that you have, the better chance you have of finding a job and making a living. So that's important. Get as much education as you possibly can, and find what you love. Find out what you love to do, so you have a passion for it. It's a passion that sustains you during tough times. It's that passion that sustains you. I found what I love to do when I was very young, and I consider myself very lucky that that was the case. By the time I was 18, I knew for sure what I wanted to do with my life. And that passion sustained me, and it will do that for you if you really find what you love to do. If you love to do what you're doing, it makes a big difference in your life. So that's my best advice. Thanks for the question.
That was our final question for you. Do you have any closing statements?
Yes, I do. I consider myself a very, very lucky person. I set out hoping to make a living as an actor, and I consider myself blessed. Not only have I, ever since Star Trek went on the air, I have never had to worry about work. I've had steady employment in all kinds of work. I have toured the United States in various performances and jobs. I have worked in theater on Broadway a couple times. I never thought I would direct movies, but I ended up directing 6 films, including 2 Star Trek films and 3 Men and a Baby, which was a lot of fun to do. I consider myself a blessed person. I have found happiness in my personal life, and a great sense of accomplishment, and a great sense of satisfaction in knowing that I'm connected with a franchise, the Star Trek franchise, which is highly respected throughout the world, and for good reason. The producers and the writers and Gene Roddenberry, who gave us these great ideas to work with and gave us these great scripts to work with, were very, very talented people. I consider myself very, very lucky to be in that environment and that surrounding, to be able to produce works that not only entertain, but enlighten people and help to make us all a little better as a human race. I feel very, very blessed to find myself in that place. And, not least of all by any means, I find it just absolutely thrilling to know that a couple hundred people will sit down in a room in Knoxville, Tennessee, and listen to what I have to say.